Well, hello there, everyone. Thank you for joining today, the conversation on Ready, Set, Respond. I'm Carla Alisea, and I'm your host. I'm the director here at Apartment Ratings and Satisfax for client performance. And I am so grateful for all of our clients who were able to join today's conversation. We are going to talk about the reputation equation. We're going to look at this. We're going to look at online reputation from an asset management perspective. And I'm really excited to have our guest today, Michaela Daniel Smith, Director of Asset Management at True Point Capital, joining the conversation to give us a little bit of background about what she values when analyzing her assets and looking at their online reputation. Now, before we start the conversation, I want to remind everyone about our giveaway. So if you find something particularly insightful or important or relevant to this conversation, share that after the show on either our Instagram page or our Facebook page. And we're going to have some judges taking a look at those submissions, and we're going to award the most insightful submission a $50 gift card. Also, if you've been on the program before, you know that we like to start it out by asking you guys a few questions. So you see that QR code there on your screen? Why don't you go ahead and get logged in? Because I want to find out a little bit about you, our audience, before we get started. I want to know who's joined us today. I want to know specifically, what is your role in property management? Who are we talking to today? Are you in maintenance? Are you in leasing? Are you in marketing? A lot of our clients hold different roles in multifamily operations. So we really kind of wanted to get an idea of what it is that you're responsible for, to kind of understand how we should phrase the conversation around reputation management and asset management. All right. Now, again, you can go ahead and scan that QR code to go ahead and access the polls. All right. We'll go ahead and get started then. Looks like two and other. Okay, well, I'm going to ask one more question. Let's see if there are any more of you out there today. I want to know, what aspect of a community's online reputation do you believe are most important or crucial for an asset manager? What are they looking at? Are they looking at the trustworthiness of your reviews, the authenticity of your reviews? Maybe it's the star rating that seems to stand out. Or maybe it's how quickly are you responding to those reviews? Okay. And you can choose more than one. Absolutely. You know, if you have an asset manager or if you are an asset manager, you know, what is most crucial to you? So trustworthiness, oh, I love seeing that. Trustworthiness and authenticity being the standout crucial aspects of a reputation. And then coming in, star rating and reply time. No one mentioning review volume. Very, very interesting there. All right, reply time going up a little bit more. A couple more of you getting logged in. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Okay. Well, I think this is a really good time to bring out our guest. Michaela, are you with us?
I am, Carla. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. You know, before we dive into all things reputation management, as you may know, this week we've been celebrating Residential Property Management Careers Week. And this is a time where we promote across our industry the stories of our multifamily professionals, from maintenance to leasing to management, and even supplier partners, and promote basically all the wonderful career opportunities available should people choose to go into residential property management. So I wanted to start the conversation out today to ask you, what was your career path that led you to become the director of asset management at True Point Capital? And can you tell our audience a little bit about what is an asset manager and how is that different from, say, a regional manager or an area manager?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Well, I started my career in apartment communities through leasing actually when I was in college. I wanted a discount on my rent. So that's kind of how I started. That wasn't the career path that I had planned to take, but I absolutely fell in love with the industry and continued to move on and get promotions. So I've held roles of leasing, assistant manager, property manager, regional manager. At one point with Lincoln, I was a property accountant. At
Wow.
kind of at the large site, I was an executive vice president nationally over about 15 to 20,000 units. And then I've even owned my own management company and investment company, which all kind of came to a dwindling after COVID. So I was really excited to join TruePoint a few years ago, and I've always loved the number side. It's kind of what's spoken to me. Obviously, in property management, as a regional and really as an executive, you wear many different hats between marketing and finance, and obviously HR and people. So I really enjoy the asset management side, just kind of digging into the numbers. It's very different from being a vice president or a regional manager or a manager, because you kind of take the people part out of it directly as far as supervision, and you're really just digging into those numbers and trying to figure out what they directly correlate to, and how you can move those in your group's behalf.
Okay, so we can think of maybe an asset manager as the person who's overseeing that budget and making sure that our communities are performing, uh, to performa based off of expectations, based off of underwriting, maybe the financing of the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Okay. Well, as an asset manager, let me ask you. We talked a little bit before this program, as I always do with my guests, so I can get a little bit of understanding before I bring them onto the program about what it is in a community's online reputation that you utilize as an asset manager. What elements are you looking at? What specific metrics are you prioritizing? And you came up with these four areas. Can you expand a little bit about, how you're using online reviews when you're assessing a portfolio?
Yes. Yeah, I know that one area I think that you were a little bit more surprised about that may be non-conventional is with new acquisitions.
Mhm.
Certainly, when we're looking and evaluating a property, I look at their financial statements. I look at a lot of underwriting and historical data, but I also like to jump on and just Google them and see what the current residents are saying about the community. It helps me determine different areas of like the physical asset that might be challenging. Are there physical assets? Are there, roof leaks? Are there pest issues?
The walls
Are there,
then.
yeah, are there parking issues? And then it
Mhm.
also allows me to evaluate the current management team. So, I love to keep management teams in place when we take over property. So, certainly seeing how they're responding provides good insight into what that current customer experience looks like. Um, and then, with our existing portfolio, certainly allows us just to get an insight into what our customers are experiencing through positive areas of reviews. We're able to obviously, you know, pat our teams on the back and use those as examples to help train other people on
Mhm.
the way how we want to respond. But certainly also any negative issues we have with negative customer experiences, and maybe even sometimes we have negative responses. Maybe we could respond better. We always want to be organic and authentic in our responses. So whether we do a good job or a bad job, I always try to coach our teams that it's good to use that experience to help with our training. Um, and allow to just improve moving forward.
Absolutely. So when you're looking at these reviews and you're
Mhm.
thinking, okay, I see some positive, I see some negative, I'm looking for trends, I'm looking for opportunities for either in investing in the community, the physical structure, or investing in the team, right, through training and feedback. Can you elaborate on the importance of maintaining an authentic online reputation, especially I think in today's competitive marketplace? I feel like, and I hear this from many individuals, that on-site teams are under so much pressure to
Mhm.
just only get positive reviews. Um, Sometimes that might lead to maybe review gating, or an online reputation that isn't as authentic. But it seems to me, if you're using this feedback in a way to better manage these communities,
Yeah.
authenticity would be really important. So what role does authenticity play, in your evaluation?
Yeah. I mean, I think that obviously with the survey results at the beginning of this call, seeing that everybody sees that it is very important to see authentic and organic reviews. Certainly, over the years and evaluating and seeing how reviews have progressed and continued to foster, um, it it's kind of easy to tell when you're looking at it what's real and what's not.
Mm,
Certainly, you know, I can understand sometimes supervision and oversight wanting to really promote positive uh, reviews only, but that's not realistic. So it's important to support the teams and really just focus on the actual customer experience,
mhm,
um, to promote organic and authentic reviews.
mhm,
Um, I do think that, you know, a lot of times the negative reviews tend to be louder, in the
mm,
sense that, if you have a negative review, if you're scrolling through, you want to try to see, okay, are there three, four, five more that are better? And so it's important, especially with responses, to really tailor the response to any negative reviews and positive for that matter,
mhm,
to
mhm,
where it really highlights and focuses on the uh, what the residents' perspective is, what
mhm.
their issue was, and try to have some form of response or way to overcome that or further communicate with them to overcome it.
Yeah.
Um, so that's an area that certainly, I think that it's important to focus on the fact that not all reviews are going to be positive, and that's okay. And it's just moving forward with those and trying to overcome.
Yeah. We've noticed, you know, now renters expect to see a response, right? It's the third most important element of an online review. The third most helpful element of an online review is that management response.
Yeah.
And what we see at apartment ratings now is more and more management companies have embraced that. They are responding to their reviews, but the opportunities in those responses, I think, are still being cultivated. You're still seeing a lot of responses that are very generic, very
Mhm.
templated, really trying to move the conversation offline. Like, I'm so sorry you had this experience, or thank you so much for your positive review. If you need to get a hold of management, please reach out to us. Instead of addressing the concern in the review straightforward and putting out that customer service, very knowledgeable, right? Um, Response that demonstrates that team's skills, their
Yes.
professionalism, that they know policy. And I think that's still an area for opportunity. When you see those kind of responses, what does that tell you?
Yeah, no, it makes a huge difference, and it shows that the teams and the management are are dialed into what the customer's looking for. And certainly, I mean, obviously, from a marketing standpoint, from a leasing standpoint, we know that reviews are something that our customers are looking for.
Mhm.
So we need to read them in the eyes of what a customer's looking at. So if they see a standard response, call our office. Well, that doesn't give them much, support thinking that when they move in, they're going to get any better response. So I
Mm-hmm.
do agree that it's important to really tailor those responses and not just say, hey, reach out to us. To me, that's kind of a little bit of avoiding, what the stance is. And certainly it's okay to, one of the biggest issues I've seen, I think, that management companies are afraid to admit any wrongdoing
Mm-hmm.
online. And
Mm-hmm.
it's okay. It's okay to say, hey, I'm so sorry that we didn't, meet your expectations. This is what we're going to do. And, we hope that, you will allow us to help make this better moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Speaking of, recognizing fake online reviews, right? The authenticity factor. We recently did the biennial online renter study, and we asked renters, are you confident you can recognize a fake online review? What I thought was really interesting. So first of all, overall, on average, if we just look at all of the respondents, it was about a 60%, 59% of renters said, yeah, I'm pretty confident that I can recognize a fake review. But when you break it down by age group, what I really thought was interesting is the younger the renter, the more confident that they are that they can spot those, maybe not so authentic reviews. And this kind of plays into our narrative that's been unraveling about this new generation, that they're truth seekers. They're very conscientious consumers, right? And all the data points towards that, almost 75% of them saying, yeah, I think I can recognize a fake online review. So, Michaela, what about you? When you're reading all these reviews, you're assessing maybe a new asset. Are there any indicators that give you pause that maybe what you're reading isn't real?
Yeah, absolutely. When they're generic and just kind of an overview of this is the best place I've ever lived, I would recommend it to anyone. I mean, if they're just very openly positive and just generic, then that's certainly a concern. When I read reviews and see a certain employee's name mentioned in like 8 of the 10, you have to wonder if it was them asking uh, to be, positive review by clients or customers.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I've seen in some housing where a resident will blast to their friends and say, hey, can you please, do a bunch of positives? My, community or my friend isn't wanting positive reviews for this company. So certainly I think that you can tell those kind of stock answers versus, for
Mm-hmm.
me, a more authentic, helpful, insightful review is one that gives a little bit more detail. So if it's a negative review, they're going to say, give specific examples of, hey, I called this day, I had an issue with my roof or appliance, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they give specifics. So I think that that's how that kind of allows me to see a little bit better into, whether or not that's a true valid
Yeah.
review.
So even as an asset manager or director, you're not looking at every single review and taking it verbatim. You're reading between the lines as well, just like renters do.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
we have Eric on chat, and he was wondering my definition of a fake review. Is this made up and bogus, or fake as in AI generated? Now, I
Hmm.
personally haven't seen or recognized
Mhm.
AI generated reviews yet, but I imagine that that's coming for us
Yeah.
sometime soon. But the majority of the reviews that I have seen that tend to, I think, stands out is, you know, when you're reading reviews and you see a lot of reviews that aren't really about a living experience, maybe they're about a person. Maybe a resident says, oh, I'm writing this review to get entered into a raffle, or things like that, where it's just
Mhm.
not, as you said, Michaela, authentic about a real living experience.
Right.
And And just like you do, you're like, I'm not looking at those. Those aren't the ones that I'm considering for training opportunities. Those aren't the ones that I'm considering for investment in the asset. I am looking for those stories that are going to give me some intel on what it is like for my residents, for my employees, to live at that community. And, renters are doing the same thing. I'm actually in the middle of doing some deep qualitative interviews with renters around their experiences with reviews. And a lot of them are ignoring reviews that are not relevant to their own preferences. So, for example, maybe you're a parent, so you're looking for reviews that mention things about playgrounds or pools or outdoor amenities or, things that are relevant to your experience as a parent or to your experience as a dog owner or to your experience as someone who likes to cook, right? And renters are so multifaceted. You never know what review and what story is going to resonate with them. Okay. So back to, thinking about asset management. And you said it's all about the numbers and budgets. So
Absolutely.
of course we have to ask a question about how does asset management and reputation management overlay? Have you seen any kind of correlation between a community's, let's say, their satisfaction surveys or their online reputations and their budget outcomes?
Yeah, certainly, especially in respect to resident satisfaction. When we're conducting, regular surveys for resident satisfaction, or even if we're not, I'm able to really correlate satisfaction based on our turnover for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, with higher resident satisfaction, you're going to see reduced turnover. So higher retention rate, people are going to stay. They're not going to move. Certainly, there's other factors, as far as job change, different things that pertain to that. But overall, you're going to see, reduced turnover, which then in turns decrease turn costs, decrease vacancy, and honestly, turn costs and vacancy are very two big players in the profitability of an asset. So those two are huge. Additionally, with higher turnover, you also see stressed staff. They're going to have more pressure on them. So certainly reducing turnover reduces not only turn costs, vacancy, but also reduces stress on our teams. And in regards to expenses, I love to see an increase in resident referrals. And you're not going to hear an asset manager very often say you want to see an increase in an expense. But if we see an increase in resident referral fees, then that means that we really are doing our job and we're focused on resident satisfaction, because they have other people that they're wanting to bring to the community, because they are having a good customer experience. And in return, that further decreases turnover because they're going to want to stay.
Yeah. All right. So you've heard it here, everyone. There is a correlation between resident satisfaction and budget outcomes. Last thing before we play our fact or fiction game, what pitfalls should operators and team members avoid when managing their online reputation?
Sure. Yeah, the biggest thing, and it's been a while since I've seen this, but a few years ago, I was meeting with an organization and trying to assist them in some of their concerns. And they were dead set on not even responding to reviews, whether they were negative or positive. And you have to be in the room when somebody's reviewing you. It's very important to not ignore that and to respond again, whether it's negative or positive review. And it's important to not respond with a generic response. Be authentic, organic in the responses. And then another area, kind of taking away the customer and resident portion, is really your employees as well. It's extremely important to know your employee satisfaction levels. So I think that that's one thing that sometimes we miss and we don't put as much importance on.
Yeah.
That really plays a part and also directly impacts our resident satisfaction.
Hmm.
And so I really, we want to keep our employees happy, have low turnover. So that's extremely important. And then also, finally, continuing to, or if groups are pressuring teams to just focus on increasing positive reviews. So if you set a bit, a benchmark and see kind of where you're at, and then say, okay, we need to see reviews increased by 40%. It really does, by a certain amount of time. It puts a little bit undue pressure on teams to produce unrealistic goals, when
Hmm.
really the goal needs to be placed on the ultimate resident satisfaction and that experience,
Yeah.
and also providing proper training and support to the teams. Again, looking at both negative and positive reviews. So using that all as a positive learning experience.
Absolutely. That's our philosophy, absolutely, is to start with that internal feedback using surveys, preferably, like you said, employee and resident surveys, right? Because that then you're going to get the full picture.
Mhm.
Using that data, supporting the teams, using those success metrics to celebrate those successes, and using those opportunity metrics to further inform, educate, and support the teams in whatever it is they need. And it is for me, since joining Satisfax last year, so rewarding to log into someone's exchange to review their data and see that trend go up in their resident satisfaction, and just seeing green across the board for a portfolio. Um, I feel excited for the team. I can only imagine how they feel when
Yeah,
they're looking at those numbers. Um, they're not blind. They have a roadmap. They know what they need to do. There's someone saying, "Hey, this is how your residents are feeling." And same for operators with their employees. Hey, here's what your employees are saying. Here's what we could be doing better. And that all will resonate online. That all ends up uh, in your reputation, one way or another, right?
absolutely.
Okay, well, Michaela, thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining the
thank you.
conversation. For those that are still with us, if you have any questions for Michaela before we play Fact or Fiction, feel free to type that into the chat. Um, I'm going to just hang out here for a second, see if we get any chat questions for Michaela. But if not, Michaela, we always play this game called Fact or Fiction.
Okay.
So I'm going to read you two statistics. They both come from the Satisfax Biannual Online Runner Study. And you have to tell me if it is true or if I made that up, if it's fiction.
Okay.
The audience, you guys can play along. So again, scan that QR code, go ahead and get logged in. I think there's going to be like a countdown. It's like a quiz type application. So let's go ahead and see what our first statement is. All right. So we're waiting for players. We got 3 players on ahead, and I'm going to get that quiz started here. Okay. So over 63% of renters said that the online reviews of their current apartment community were a contributing factor to their decision to rent? Or do you think that is fiction? So over 63% of renters said that online reviews for their current apartment community were a contributing factor to their decision to rent. Michaela, what do you think?
I would absolutely say fact.
Okay, let's see what it is. Everyone guessed fact. Michaela, you were right. It's absolutely fact. So reviews are playing into that decision to rent. But again, from our study, it's not necessarily the star rating, it's the stories, right? It's just like what Michaela has said over and over today. It's reading those stories and the ones that are relevant, that resonate the most with renters. Okay, next one, last one. We'll get logged in. And this one is based on perception versus reality. 1 in 10 renters said that the positive reviews they read were inflated compared to their resident experience. So 1 in 10 people read reviews online, had one set of expectations, moved in, and that experience did not meet those expectations. What do you think? Fact or fiction? Oops. Well,
Yeah.
it's fiction. It's
Yeah,
fiction
I
because
would say that it's higher than that.
yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's actually 22%, which is somewhere between 1 in 5 and 1 in 4 renters. So 1 in 5 to 1 in 4 renters are reading online reviews, expecting a certain level of service, moving in, and being disappointed. And that is literally the definition of resident satisfaction. Satisfaction is, does reality meet is reality equal to or greater than my expectations? So that's a problem. I hope as an industry, we can figure out a way to promote those realistic stories about what it's like to live at our community, so that we can set up those real expectations and then exceed them when those residents move in. Michaela, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And guys, as a reminder, if there was anything that stood out to you today from this conversation, that's, maybe sparked a question, or you have a big takeaway, head on over to Instagram or Facebook. We'll have a post up there. Just add a comment for that chance to win a $50 gift card. And then also don't forget to register for next month's conversation. I'm going to have a gentleman named Ronald Harrington join us. He is the training manager at Haven Residential. He's also a co-host on the APT Chat podcast, and he's also the host of Rooms with Ronald. And we're going to talk all about prospect expectations. Kind of led that conversation just now, talking about the definition of satisfaction. So we're going to talk about prospect expectations heading into that busy leasing season. What are some expert strategies for leasing alignment, to align our marketing strategies, to align our sales strategies with what prospects expect out of their apartment community today. So I hope you'll join us for that conversation. And again, all good things must come to an end, and we've reached the end of our program. So thank you for joining the conversation today. I'm Carla Alisea, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.